Thank you, Peter. Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, it is my privilege to welcome you to this vital session on building peace in the midst of conflict. My name is Elizabeta Kitanovic-Brus, and I'm honored to serve as a moderator for today's discussion. Big thanks to the organizational committee for inviting me to moderate this session, especially to Audrey, Ganun, Peter, and the others who have been very hardly working to prepare this symposium. As we navigate an era marked by complex and evolving conflicts, the imperative for sustainable peace building has never been greater. This session seeks to explore practical strategies, challenges, and opportunities in fostering dialogue, reconciliation, and resilience in conflict-affected contexts. We are joined by esteemed panelists who bring valuable expertise and experience to this discussion. My role today is to facilitate an engaging and constructive dialogue, ensuring that we examine both policy and practice in advancing peace and stability. I encourage all participants to contribute actively as we seek solutions that are both innovative and actionable. So I think that the biographies of the panelists are displayed. I would like to invite Ms. Rosalind Agbo. She is present in person, Chief of Peace Building Department of Political and Peace Building Affairs. Also, we have today Ms. Jenny Nim. She will be present online. She will be speaking in Spanish from the World Council of Churches, Deputy Special Envoy to Peace Process in Colombia. Sister Dr. Macrina Fenley. She's also present online. She comes from Regenerate Singai, Iraq, United Religions Initiative. Mr. Person, CEO of Islamic Relief US. We will start this session in the interview form. And the first question for Ms. Rosalind is, what are some of the biggest challenges you face in engaging governments and international financial institutions in sustaining peace?
I thank you very much, Elisabetta, for that question. And thank you to Peter for inviting us to be here today and to engage with all of you. It was really great listening to you as you started this session with Kiki with a lot of energy. As I was listening to you at 8:30 in the morning, I was like, I'm bumped up and ready. I'm not wearing black as you might have ordered, but I am representing with the blue UN, bringing the hope for millions and billions of citizens across the world who look up to us to live up to the calling of the UN Charter, which is really to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. Just quoting directly from the UN Charter. And that's why I think it was great that the issue of nuclear weapons really came in, because isn't that why we were created in the first case, really, to stop us from descending into a third world war, which I must say that despite everything that might look very gloomy, we have averted at least a global third world war. But we have not stopped conflicts. Children are still dying in Gaza. Women are still running around helpless in DRC. Many young people are being affected in Sudan, South Sudan, and many other contexts. So peace is still elusive, but we have to keep working. If it was easy, somebody else would have done it. And that is why I think that is a hope that we have as we work at the UN. And so, Elisabetta, to your question, I think the challenges are many. And I think listening throughout the conversations, I heard many of you raise those challenges that we face. I'm just going to mention one. Lack of political will. The lack of political will to do what is right and really uphold the commitments that member states have made. Member states have made commitments on peace. There's numerous resolutions that you will find on sustaining peace. There are numerous resolutions that you will find on prevention of conflict. There is an entire pact for the future that outlines on what member states need to do to promote and sustain peace. And so political will is really what we lack. And I think for me, this is where the church, the faith-based organizations come in, really to be the moral compass that reminds all those who have made commitments that you have an obligation to abide by those commitments that you have made. And so that voice of reason that always comes from the faith-based organizations is one that we look up to and hope that working with citizens, that voice can remind the member states, can remind all of us as individuals of the need to abide by what we promised to do. By the resolutions that we have put out, by the commitments that we have put out, by engendering political will to deliver on all of them. Thank you.
Can you share a success story where UN partnerships have made a tangible impact in justice and peace building efforts?
Thank you. I think we have several examples. Let me pick the easiest one, and I say the easiest one because as a Kenyan, it's very easy to pick that one. Also because it's one in which I did see the role of the church. I did see the role of the business community, and I saw the role of citizens really in addressing that. If you might recall, I'm taking you very many years back to 2007, 2008, when the African Union, working together with the United Nations under the leadership of a panel of eminent persons from the continent, they worked to avert a crisis that would have been worse than it already had after 1,200 people had been killed following the post-election violence in the country. The UN played a key role in the background, which I think is really what I believe we do best when we are able to provide the technical support, which is what we did, because using the Peace Building Fund that had been established by that time, there were funds that were made available for the Kofi Annan panel to continue to do its work. We were able, as the United Nations, to bring in the technical capacity to mediate, to bring the electoral capacity to be able to show the Kenyan people that you were not going to be able to recount those ballots. You needed just to move on and agree to reconciliation rather than saying we're going to open the ballot papers, because you couldn't, and they couldn't have determined for you who would be the winner. But I think it also helped with the reconciliation part, with the faith-based organizations playing really a very, very fundamental role, but also the business community playing a key role in ensuring that the reconciliation process was done. The United Nations continued to support the national reconciliation process, and through, again, the Peace Building Fund, but also different capacities that the United Nations had. I'm saying this to show that the UN can and has the various capacities that it can bring together. But again, going back to my theme, my first point, it took political will. It took political will from all the actors to recognize that they needed to come to the table and come up with a solution and avert more people being killed. Imagine if we were able to do this for Gaza. Imagine if we were able to do this for South Sudan. Imagine if we were able to do this for Myanmar, where we accept and agree that we've made mistakes, that we need to move forward, that we need to prioritize people, and that the United Nations needs to come in, not necessarily always as the one that is seen in the front, but the one that works behind the scenes, provides the capacities, provides the resources, and provides a convening platform for member states and actors and civil society to address the conflicts that they find themselves in. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind. We are going to go to the next speaker, Ms. Jenny Nim. We are going to have a translation from Spanish into English. So, Jenny, a question for you. Many post-conflict societies struggle with reintegration. What strategies have been most effective in reintegrating ex-combats in Colombian society?
Good morning, everyone. por tu
Thank you,
moderación y un
Elisabetta,
saludo muy
for
especial,
your
saludando por
moderation.
supuesto este simposio que me parece muy pertinente.
I think
Es
this
importante
symposium is very
recordar que en
important and
Colombia
very
llevamos más de
pertinent.
60
It's
años
very important to remember
de
that
situaciones
in
de conflicto
Colombia,
armado y esto
we've been
no ha
in
sido
conflict, in armed conflicts
fácil
for more than
tratarlo.
70 years,
Se han
and
desarrollado
this has
muchos
not been
procesos de
easy to address.
diálogos de
There
paz
have
para
been a lot
construir
of
acuerdos,
processes,
así que siempre ha
of
sido un
peace
reto
processes,
lo
of
que es la
discussion processes,
transición a la
and it
vida
has
civil
always
y
been a
las personas
challenge
que han estado vinculadas
for
como
them
actores armados.
to
Pero
reintegrate
quizás
in the
mencionaría como
social,
estrategias eficaces
in the civil
la
society.
inclusión, quizás la
I think
combinación de
it's important
algunos aspectos. Aquí en
to
Colombia,
combine
creo que
different
el acuerdo final
aspects
de
here in
paz que se
Colombia.
logró en el año
I think
2016 con la guerrilla de las FARC
the
incluyó una perspectiva de integración
2016 final peace agreement
socioeconómica,
with the
jurídica
guerrilla Las
y de
FARC
acceso a la justicia. Creo que esa
was
combinación
extremely
de elementos
important, and it
llevó
combined
con profundos retos, por
access
supuesto,
to
pero llevó a
justice,
una visión integral de la reintegración.
and it brought
No es
a
fácil
new
que un
way to integration.
combatiente
It's not
vuelva a la vida
easy
civil
for an
o
ex-combat
esté en la vida
to
civil.
come back
Eso
to
requiere
civil life.
pensar cómo
That
participar, cómo estar
requires
dentro de la sociedad,
to
cómo
rethink
interactuar con
how
las
to
víctimas y
interact with
cómo
the victims
entrar a la
and
civilidad.
how
Por eso ha sido
to
muy
go back
importante esta
to
visión de que el
civil
Estado
society.
garantice acceso a la
And that
justicia,
is why it was
condiciones
so important
jurídicas.
for the state
Aquí se creó
to
una
assure
justicia
the
transicional. Para
legal
ello, también
conditions.
se creó una comisión de la verdad, por
A
ejemplo,
commission, a
para
truth
aportar a
commission
la
was
verdad de lo que
created
ha ocurrido en
in
el
order to
conflicto colombiano, pero
in
también
order
de
to
identificar
create
los distintos
recreate the
responsables.
truth
Es
of
decir,
what
no
was
solamente
happening
quienes han
in
estado
the
en armas
Colombian
han
conflict.
tenido responsabilidad en el conflicto,
Not
sino
only
también el Estado
the
mismo.
ex-combat
El Estado
the
mismo por
ex-combats were
omisión,
responsible for what they
por
did, but
falta
also
de
the
presencia
state was responsible
institucional,
and
por crear
and it was held
condiciones favorables
accountable
de vida digna,
for not
también
creating the
tiene
right
responsabilidad.
living
Entonces, esta comisión de la
conditions
verdad
and for not giving
llevó
people the
abrir estos
opportunities they
canales.
deserved.
También una jurisdicción especial de paz que ha incluido un componente restaurativo. Y creo que eso
And
ha
there
sido
was
de lo
also
más
a
exigente,
restorative component.
porque es buscar los caminos de encuentro dialógico entre las
It
víctimas
is
y los
fundamental
victimarios
to have
y que
a
haya un
dialogue between
reconocimiento
the
de
victims
responsabilidad y
and the
sobre todo que
fighters.
tengan una
And it
visión de
is
futuro
important that we all
compartida
have
y
a
caminar
shared
sobre
vision
estrategias
of the
comunes de
future.
transformación en los territorios.
These are
Entonces, estos son
elements
elementos,
that I
pero
had to
coincido
mention,
con la
but
persona que me antecedió
I
que
agree
quizás
with the
en
person
términos
who
de
preceded me,
acuerdos
and I
es
think
muy importante,
the
son importantes
achievements are
los
very
logros,
important, but when
pero
it
a la
comes to
hora de la
implementation,
implementación,
if
si
there's
no hay
no
voluntad
political
política
will
de los
by the
decisores en
decision
gobierno y
makers,
en el
it is very
legislativo,
difficult
es muy difícil llevar a cabo
to implement
estas
these
medidas que se han
measures.
logrado.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And one more question to you. The Colombian peace process has been both progress and setbacks. What lessons can be learned from the successes and challenges?
Claro que sí.
I'd like
Y me gusta
to,
que lo
I
plantees
like
en
it
términos de
to
lecciones
be thoughts
aprendidas.
of
Me
lessons learned
cuesta hablar de
instead of
éxitos o de fracasos. Creo
failures
que
and
son muchos
achievements.
procesos que nos llevan a pensar
I think when
cómo
it comes
conducir
to
en
such a
adelante muchos
long
procesos
conflict
de paz,
story,
porque creo que para una
um,
historia tan larga de conflicto
it's
que
very
tenemos,
hard
se van a
to get
requerir muchos
to a
procesos
common
de paz.
point.
Pero el
I
primero
think
quizás
the
tiene que
dialogue
ver
is
con la
fundamental and not
insistencia en el
any kind of
diálogo, y
dialogue.
no cualquier diálogo.
I think
Los
this is a
procesos
great
de
lesson of
diálogo
how
calificado creo que nos han
the
dejado una
parts in
gran
conflict have
lección de
different
cómo
conditions
las
in order
partes
to
en
create a
conflicto
dialogue. And
tienen
we're not
condiciones
only
para hablar,
talking about the
para dialogar. Y no
government
estamos solamente
or
hablando
about
del
the
gobierno
leaders
o del
of
alto
the armed
gobierno y
groups,
quizás
but in
de
general,
los
we're talking
líderes
about society
de las estructuras
and
de los grupos
how
armados,
this
sino en
affects
general la
the
sociedad.
society. We can talk about how we create multi-level dialogue processes. It's very important for decision makers to have dialogue spaces, but it's also very important for the victims to be heard and to have their voices heard, and at the higher levels. I think it is also very important to mention that here in Colombia, there are many agreements that were very important, as such as the agricultural reform, such as the transitional justice and social reintegration. We have also shared new topics, but we always go back to the big challenge of lack of political will in order to implement these big agreements. And another challenge that we have is the inclusion of marginalized people, such as children, boys, girls, women. We think it's very important for them to participate in these dialogues. I think it's important for them not only to talk not only about their wounds, but also their ideas to improve
Gracias, Jenny, for your input. We are going to turn to Sister Dr. Makrina Finley. She is representing Regenerate Single from Iraq, United Religions Initiative. And the question for her is, interfaith dialogue is core part of URE's work. How does religious cooperation contribute to peace and reconciliation in post-conflict societies? And how do you engage international actors in supporting grassroots peace efforts in Iraq? Over to you, Sister Makrina.
Thank you so much. I had actually asked if we could consider one of the other questions, which I would prefer to do, in large part because interfaith dialogue is very difficult in a situation of genocide where you're dealing with a persecuted minority who's been in that situation for centuries. And so I think that it would be much better if we could consider number 2 and 4, which are the ones that I've asked several times, because we're focusing on rebuilding communities. And the question was how to balance humanitarian aid with long-term peace initiatives. And that's something that I can speak to much better. And unfortunately here my answer is also we do it very imperfectly. You're trying to answer too many things at the same time. That's where all of us are. And I think it's very important to realize that you're never going to have the perfect answer or the perfect balance. One of the things that we have done, and this maybe can go a little bit into the other question, is to really try to go a little bit deeper and see what some of the underlying basic needs are. So you are constantly faced with emergencies on every single level, and those are important, and those are also always going to be there. In a situation like Shingal, one of the things that we've noticed, and it had really took years of talking with people in the community, and it's not something that's being focused on, is the absolute ecological catastrophe that exists there. What is happening right now, on the one hand, you have bombs flying, you have lack of access, you have 90% of the community in severe conditions, and that's only 25% of the original community. So it's a very difficult situation. But you also have a mountain that used to be able to retain water, that within the next 20, 30 years will not be able to do that. So trying to figure out what the balance is in between the basic needs of right now and figuring out what long-term peace can look like. So we're trying to take something of a middle ground, and trying to take something that everybody ought to agree on. The earth, water, there are basic elements that you can bring a lot of parties together on, and sometimes it takes little things. So the little victories, I suppose, bringing people together on practical projects. So in a place like Shingal, where you have very, very limited access to construction equipment, being able to use the construction equipment from the Muslim neighbors, or not necessarily neighbors, but in Talefar, who are further away. But that's the next one that you have. That's bringing the community together, and it's trying to solve a number of issues all at the same time. So I think the answer that I can give maybe to both of those questions is that we're never going to find a perfect balance. And we also need to be looking for the efforts that are going to respond to more than one issue at the same time, and also to see what is being addressed by others, and then go to the efforts to put ourselves into the places that are not being addressed. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Sister Macrin, for your answer. And I'm glad that you chose among the questions, actually, which was the most suitable to the work, actually, that you do. And we are going to turn to the next speaker, and to the CEO, Ahmed Siheda. The question for you is, what are some examples of how humanitarian assistance can help prevent conflicts from escalating, and how do you address concerns about aid politicization, especially in the conflict zones?
I'd like to thank the Planning Steering Committee for this gathering, and special thanks to my colleague, Christina Nahi, the Director of Public Affairs and Research. And this is just an amazing gathering, just to come during the hardship and the political environment that we all facing, to think together how to be part of the solutions, as Peter said it. And I like this approach that at certain point, and very soon, inshallah, as we say in Arabic, the sun will appear. I think this is our responsibility as a faith-based organization, to prevent, if possible, to learn from the mistakes. As a faith-based organization, Islamic Relief has adopted the triple nexus approaches, just to make sure to prevent and to work with the local organizations and to help. Number one, the partnership. Number two, the programs. And the third approach is the advocacy. I'm going to start from the advocacy, and I think this is the most needed point for the time being, as my colleague just mentioned about the politicians and the decision makers here in America and where else. Number one, we need to communicate. We need to talk to them. We need to tell them that we are here to help. And we have been adopting that as a faith-based organization, not to the Muslim countries that we are working with, but non-Muslim countries as well. And one of the initiatives that we have been working on is the humanitarian diplomacy delegations. And it is not that easy to put together a delegation of Muslims, Jewish, Christian politicians to take them to places. But finally, we finalized this one, and the first trip will take place to Sudan next month, the month of May. And the advocacy, and Christina can talk more than a bit better than me on this regard. Just we need to make sure that we are talking to the politicians and the decision makers from their own perspective. And I'm trying to be pragmatic on this regard. Sometime when we go and talk from the humanitarian perspective, for sure, we're going to clash with them. But we have to be pragmatic. And I remember my discussion last year after I became the CEO of the organization, even though I have been with the organization for 20 plus years, I approached the USAID just to tell them that the US aid needs organizations such as Islamic Relief to explain to them how to start implementing in many countries. If we're going to take the Muslim countries and the majority of the African countries, they were benefiting from the USA. But one of the issues that, and this is part of the culture, me personally, I'm originally from Egypt, the mindset of the recipient is that USAID has an hidden agenda all the time. When I met with them, it was my approach that I'm here to help you because I know you are doing amazing job. But you need to make sure how you're going to explain that, how you're going to empower the local communities, how you're going to make sure that they're going to engage with you, both sides, the government that you are dealing with, as well as the local organizations. And part of the advocacy, something that we have to keep in mind, which is something good, and I strongly believe will help us at certain point. The new generation everywhere, not just here in America, not my own kids, not your own kids, because they're born and raised in America, they are open-minded. This is the new trend everywhere. I was in Lesotho 2 months ago. It was my first time going to amazing country called beautiful country, Lesotho. I have been talking to the old generation and I see the amount of frustration and they are talking about issues only, which is the trend everywhere. But the new generation, they are very open-minded. They are integrated. They are by default accepting the idea of talking to others and working with others, and because of the social media. So part of the advocacy that we should adopt, we should empower them. We should work more often with them. We have to empower our own. One of the issues that we are facing here, recruiting the new generation to work with the non-for-profit. For many facts, we have to find way how to bring them, to have them on board. At Islamic Relief, on our database, we have more than 50,000 volunteers. So we started to segment the volunteers to make sure which segment of the volunteers we're going to use and approach. And we have found that the young professionals by far better than the old generation. They are very open-minded. They know exactly what's going on. They are willing to integrate. They are willing to convince the company that they are working with. And we have an example with Google, the Muslim faith group at Google. They have been advocating on behalf of Islamic Relief to make sure that Islamic Relief will get more money from Google. And we have seen the improvement. The second approach is the partnership. We strongly believe that even though Islamic Relief is the largest American Muslim humanitarian organization, we're just collecting fund from our community members. Next, within a couple of days, we're going to close the book for Ramadan 2025. We were able to raise $50+ million from individuals only. But still, we strongly believe that we cannot work alone. We have to work with partners. We have many partners, Catholic Relief, Highest, and one of which, since the event is held by the United Nations, our main partner, UNHCR, we have been working with them. We have been implementing through them. They have been helping Islamic Relief. So the concept of partnership is the only way for us to succeed. And facing the political environment, my message to our donors for the past Ramadan has finished last Sunday, to the donors and the communities across the nation, that our resources should be shared with everyone. We know many of the organizations that have been helping Islamic Relief in many ways. I know for fact now they are facing financial challenges, serious financial challenges. So our message to our donors across the nation, our resources should be shared with everyone as much as we can. And there is a chapter from the faith perspective. There is a chapter in the Quran I invite everyone to read called the human, al-insan, the human. So God is teaching us at the end of the day, as one of the respected speakers before us said, I'm the child of God. We all child of God. So we have to look at it from this perspective. At this chapter, God is encouraging and educating us to feed the needy people. There is no discrimination. There is no definition of me as a Muslim should feed Muslims only. It is bigger than that. And I think this is the time for us to practice that. Number 3 approach, which is the programs. And from the program perspective, we have 2 types of program. The early intervention, which is right after any crisis, and this one doesn't help much. The most important part is the long term, the development, to go, to stay, to empower the local organizations. I have seen it myself. The dollar that we are spending, I was in Morocco after 1 year after the earthquake. I have met group of young, beautiful girls. So they proposed something for Islamic relief that they said it clearly. We don't need some sort of support. Don't come and sponsor an orphan or give us just money on monthly basis. We are famous with oil and the olive oil. So we have started platform marketing platforms to to sell our products. So what we need from Islamic Relief is to support this project as of microfinance loan, and we have seen the improvement of this project after almost 3 months, to a limit that the USAID reached out to us before the decision of President Trump to related to USAID. They reached out to us from Morocco, and I met with them later on, and they said that they need Islamic Relief to invest more on this type of projects, and they want Islamic Relief to come with a faith group leaders from America to start project of integration between the Muslim Moroccan and the Jewish Moroccan. And it was something new to me as an Arab Muslim. I thought the Jewish in Morocco, they are very strong financially, they are very well connected with the government. So the head of the mission of USAID, he told me, yes, they are, but still the mindset is not that easy to deal with each other. So they need someone to come from a faith-based organization, Jewish organization, Muslim organization. We prefer American organization to come to start talking to them to make sure how we're going to empower the community, how we're going to reduce the tension or the potential tension. So these are the three approaches that Islamic Relief have been adopting, and working with other partners for sure. This is something make me and my team proud. The partnership that we have, and for more than 10 years, with HIAS. HIAS is the oldest Jewish refugees organization, have been helping Islamic Relief implementing in many countries that we cannot reach out to, as well as us implementing for them. And I wish that one day all of us are going to share our success stories, and will help. We're going to implement the main job for all of us to bring hope for the hopeless people. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed, because this was a very interesting input in terms of bringing us very important points, which actually can reflect of many interfaith organizations that actually we have further to continue to work on, and after this annual symposium for sure. So I would turn to Simon and ask if there are some online questions. If not, if we have some questions in the room for our distinguished speakers. Simon, over to you.
Thank you very much. There have been a number of comments in the chat, many of them calling specifically on the role of faith actors, asking about how we can work at the deeper levels of culture and consciousness, because every religion accesses the metaphysical aspects of our existence. So how do we leverage and cohere the power of this deeper realm? Looking at how we empower versus disempowering people, talking about how people are created in the image of God and that there are no distinctions between people. Another is looking at the role of faith-based organizations to speak with a prophetic voice towards public ills, and that there are some faith actors who are misinforming and creating chaos. Another comment speaking about the call from faith-based actors to reform the Security Council and end the veto, which has been used to continue conflict in the occupation of Palestine, and noting that methodology is reflecting a mode that is behind the times, a top-down model that reflects old methods of working together, and that we need to be moving into a more modern, decolonialized way of being. I think those are some of the key points that have come up in the chat. So not so much questions as comments that people may want to respond to.
Okay, thank you. So we have actually 7 minutes left. Can we just following the same order and just have one concluding remark from this panel? Rosalind, from your experience, what would be your message to take away from this panel and from this symposium?
Thank you very much. I think it's tough to leave one message, but since we are being gathered together by the people of faith, let me leave with a message of more of an appeal that I think, you know, life might look like it's really tough. Peace might look like it's very elusive. But as people of faith, I think it is possible to change. It is possible to change the trajectory that we find ourselves in terms of multilateralism, in terms of peace, in terms of funding. And I was really glad to hear Islamic Relief talk about the funds that they have raised. I mean, 50 million is really good. I'm sure my UNFPA colleagues would want us to speak with our colleague here to see how they are managing to do that so that we can support. But I think for me, we have the agency. We can be able to change. Let's raise our voices as citizens of the world. Let us not be, I was going to say, let us not be dismayed, quoting the Bible, but really, let us not give up. Things are looking not good at all, but we know we've been through this before. And with faith, with partnerships, and with agency, we can be able to pursue peace and demand for accountability and implementation from those who have signed the charter, from those who have made commitments to do better for us as citizens of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosalind. We go to Jenny. What would be your message to the audience?
Thank you very much, Elisabetta. Yeah, I think there was a question for me in the chat that I just read, so I'm going to try to share the answer as well and my final key message that I want to share with you. I wanted to say that our society is fully divided right now, and in that sense, we can't say that churches are all in favor of peace, because there are a lot of divisions in the religious sector. We see that. So I think that one of our tasks now is to unify the religious sector to work for peace. There are many inputs that have been made from the religious sector, and we'd love for more faith-based organizations to join our struggle. I also want to remind you that by the end of the 90s, different faith-based organizations worked on 3 different topics. 3 topics that are relevant to the religious sector. One is to recognize that we are a people. We are a people that was sent by God, and God gave us some talents and some gifts. And in that sense, in addition to having religious leaders, our churches, our faith-based organizations have a lot of people that have talents and gifts to serve the world for peace and for reconciliation. And for that reason, it's really important to improve the abilities of people in the church so that they can promote peace, nonviolence, and all these related topics that we discussed before. There's a second important point, and it's that we have the possibility to deliver a message. Our words are inspired by our sacred books, by our spirituality, what we have as a sacred faith-based organizations, and we can deliver these messages. And thirdly, we usually have physical spaces. We have churches or temples. So how can we leverage these temples to organize peace actions, to help the victims, to help those in need, to create more dialogues and look for peace agreements? Many of these three elements have been translated into specific actions to work in favor of these peace processes that I insist are not easy, but this is what we have to work on right now, and this is our main challenge, to work for peace and reconciliation.
Thank you, Jenny, so much for the final message. And I understand that Sister Makrina is not with us. Therefore, we go to Ahmed. Final words from your side.
Much. Uh, 2 days ago, last Tuesday, my wife called me. She works for NIH. She told me that she heard there are 2 girls from Gaza were brought to the NIH for treatment from leukemia. And she asked me to go and visit and to spend some time with them. So we went and we met with both of them, 17 and 10 years old. And yes, we have been watching and seeing what's going on in Gaza for the past 18 months. But when you see a kid talking to you face to face, different feeling. And the oldest one asked me about myself, and she was thanking me as an Egyptian because of the treatment that she received in Egypt. And she asked me if I have kids. I told her I have 2 boys, 18 and 14. Then she told me, I'm very close to your oldest one. Then we started talking about what she has seen, what she has in mind. Then she told me, I never left Gaza. So the globe to me is Gaza, very small place. And I was born and facing all of these struggles. And I have been seeing my family members getting killed over the past 17 years. But the majority of them were killed for the past 17 months. And in very Arabic way, Wallahi, Ammi, Wallahi, it's like, uncle, by God, I'm just looking for stability. That's all, nothing more, nothing less. And I have a problem, and I want to ask you and Auntie, my wife, Khalti, I have an opportunity to apply for asylum and to stay here. And I have a good opportunity to stay here. But the problem, the rest of the family is in Gaza, and they cannot leave Gaza. And I cannot live without my family. If I'm going to go back to Gaza, I'm going to lose this opportunity. If I'm going to apply, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to lose the rest of my family. Because I don't have any hope that they're going to leave. And if they're going to leave, for sure, there is no hope for us to come together again. So can you help me with that? Unfortunately, I don't have any answer for her. But I strongly believe that we have to come up with an answer to bring hope to these 2 beautiful girls. They are same age of my own kids. And yesterday, I was invited to a meeting, dialogue, discussion between Muslims and Jewish in Washington, D.C. So everyone was introducing himself or herself and sharing the anxiety. When my term came, I told them, I don't think that we have the leverage of feeling or sharing our frustration, because the politicians failed, and I don't think that they have any solutions for us. And let us be honest on this regard. The only solutions for the time being is the faith-based organization, the faith-based leaders. And I don't see much differences between the Jewish religious leaders I have met yesterday and the imams and the Muslims leaders that I have met yesterday at the same room. But unfortunately, for a good amount of times, we were talking about the differences only. As I mentioned, I'm Arab, Muslim, Egyptian, graduated from Al-Azhar, the largest religious university. I remember, and I have to admit that to make sure to adjust myself, to make sure that I'm going to prevent my own kids from all of the wrong understanding have been sharing with everyone. Unfortunately, when we meet and talk, we are talking about differences. We don't talk about the bigger picture. As human being, we can come to each other. I'm sure the verses on my Quran, holy book, similar to the verses that on the other holy books, asking everyone to behave well, to help each other, to come together to do something good for the society at large. And again, I'm not here to give these speeches. This is what I believe and this is what I have been doing. And we have seen the response from many of the community members, Muslims and non-Muslims. So I think we don't have the leverage of saying we cannot carry on the responsibility. We don't have the leverage of saying we cannot prevent, but we can do a lot of things. As an immigrant myself, I know the power of being American citizen, living in America. We have to make sure how we're going to advocate, how we're going to be the voice for the voiceless people, domestically and internationally, Muslims, non-Muslims, anyone else. I strongly believe that the sun will appear very soon. Thanks so much, everyone, for having us, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for your witness. And I would like just to draw to your attention key words from the Building Peace in the Midst of Conflict session. And these are important will, restoring justice and dialogue, bringing people together and communities together, listening and allowing young people voice into the peace building processes, as well as importance of the family. So thanks to the organizer of the annual symposium on the role of religion and faith-based actors in international affairs. And Peter, over to you. And greetings from Brussels.
Special thanks to Elisabetta for moderating that panel remotely. That's no easy task. And thanks to all the speakers, both here in person and online. Excellent, excellent interventions. I think what I'd like to lift up is, first of all, the big focus for all the speakers was on the role of faith actors in community contexts, community-based peace building. And I think that might be the special asset that faith actors can bring. But also recognizing the role of faith actors as bridges, perhaps, between government, between community, between international development organizations, local faith-based communities, building those bridges, recognizing all along the fundamental obstacle that lack of political will represents, and the divisions within faith communities and among faith communities as an obstacle that has to be addressed in the first instance in order to really leverage the assets that faith actors can bring to this challenge. So now we must hand over to our final panel. Reverend Levi Bautista is in the seat, so I'm going to, hand over the microphone.